everyone, welcome back to Velvet Moments. Here we don't rush toward loud headlines or dramatic spectacles. We don't chase moments that demand to be seen. Instead, we slow down. We pause. We observe. We let the quiet moments breathe. Because often it's the smallest details, the ones that slip by almost unnoticed, that stay with us the longest. A glance held just a second too long. A seat chosen without thought. A photo taken not for the world but for memory. Tonight we're talking about one of those moments. Simple dinner. 3 photos. A gentle, almost casual caption, Jimin, Jungkook, JHope and V. And woven softly between it all, the kind of warmth that doesn't need explanation. Let's step into this quiet scene together and see what it tells us about closeness, comfort and the kind of love that lives in the smallest spaces. Hobie has a quiet habit. One that never asks for attention, yet somehow always captures it. When a moment feels real, when the atmosphere softens and guards come down, he notices. And without making it feel important, he preserves it. That night, gathered around a dinner table, the air felt warm and unguarded. No schedules pressing in. No expectations hanging heavy. Just voices overlapping gently, laughter rising and fading naturally, the clink of cutlery, the comfort of familiarity. In that moment, Hobie lifted his phone. He took one photo. Then another. Then a third. 3 photos in total, taken without rush, without staging, without pressure. It didn't feel like documentation. It felt like collecting something fragile. Like holding on to a feeling before it quietly slipped away. When he shared them, the caption was simple. Jimin, Jungkook, JHope and V. No embellishment. No explanation. Just names. And somehow that simplicity said everything. His names, when spoken this way, carry intimacy. They strip away titles, achievements and expectations. They return people to their most human form. Not global stars. Not icons. Just people he loves. The dinner itself was nothing extraordinary on the surface. No dazzling lights. No stage outfits. No cameras meant for millions of eyes. Just a table, shared dishes, and the soft hum of conversation that didn't need to be loud to feel alive. And maybe that's why it mattered so much. Because moments like this, ordinary, unpolished, real, are the ones that often disappear. They don't announce themselves. They don't demand attention. They exist quietly, and unless someone chooses to hold on to them, they fade. That night, someone chose to remember. Jimin and Jungkook sat beside each other, naturally, as if the space between them had already decided where they belonged. There was no hesitation, no visible choice. They simply ended up there side by side the way they so often do. Their shoulders hovered close, sometimes brushing, sometimes not, but always aware of the other's presence. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't performative. It was instinctive. Their movements mirrored each other in subtle ways. Reaching for food. Leaning in slightly. Relaxing back into their chairs. It was quiet synchronization. The kind that only comes from years of shared rhythm, shared silence, shared understanding. Jimin's expression was soft, almost luminous in its calm. His smile wasn't shaped for a camera or an audience. It appeared gently, the way smiles do when someone feels safe. His gaze drifted now and then, landing on Jungkook without urgency or expectation. Just a glance that lingered a heartbeat longer than necessary before drifting away. And yet, every time it felt intentional in the most subconscious way. As if his heart checked in before his mind ever did. Jungkook, meanwhile, looked relaxed in a way that felt deeply personal. There was no edge to him. No guardedness. No need to impress. When Hobie's phone turned in his direction, he smiled. Not the bright, confident grin the world knows so well, but something quieter. Softer. Almost shy. Like he had been caught inside a moment he didn't realize anyone would find worth remembering. So he didn't move away. He didn't shift his seat. He didn't pull back. He stayed exactly where he was, right beside Jimin, grounded and unbothered, like that closeness was simply where he belonged. Hobie noticed all of it. Maybe not consciously. Maybe not in words. But he felt it. As someone who has shared years of life with them, he knows when a moment is more than just a moment. He knows when laughter sounds warmer. When silence feels comfortable instead of awkward. When togetherness settles into a room like a familiar blanket. So he kept taking pictures. Not because it was special in a dramatic way, but because it was special in a real one. The caption, Jimin, Jungkook, JHope and V. feels warm when you sit with it. Not loud. Not performative. Just a quiet acknowledgement of who they are to him. Not roles. Not positions. Not names meant for headlines. Just names spoken the way you say the names of people you love. Inside those photos they look whole. They aren't trying to impress anyone. They aren't aware of being watched by millions someday. They aren't performing closeness. They're living it. There is no effort in the way they exist together, and that effortlessness is what makes it so overwhelming to witness. There has always been something deeply moving about seeing Jimin and Jungkook in moments stripped of spectacle. In these quiet spaces their emotions feel truer. A shared glance that carries years of history. A smile that doesn't ask for a response but receives one anyway. A comfort that doesn't need explanation because it has long since been understood. Jimin has a way of creating warmth simply by being there. He listens with his whole presence. He exists gently, leaving room for others to breathe. And Jungkook, who so often carries intensity, responsibility and expectation, seems to soften around him. Like he's found a place where he doesn't need to be strong, or impressive, or perfect. He can just exist. And that, in itself, says everything. The dinner likely didn't last very long. Plates were cleared. Conversations shifted. The night moved forward as nights always do. But the feeling of it lingers. Because when you look at those photos, you're not just seeing four people sharing a meal. You're seeing years of trust. Shared silence. Unspoken understanding. Love expressed without needing language. No dramatic declarations were made. No words like, "I love you" filled the air. No moment demanded attention. And yet somehow it feels heavier than all of that. Because the deepest bonds don't announce themselves. They reveal their strength in the smallest details. Choosing the seat beside someone without thinking, staying close even when there's no reason to, smiling simply because the person next to you exists. And yes, I cried. Truly, genuinely cried. Loudly crying face. Not because of heartbreak. Not because of tragedy. But because of how tender it all was. Because of how safe Jimin and Jungkook looked together. Because of how lovingly Hobi chose to freeze that moment in time knowing, perhaps instinctively, that it mattered. That's what these photos remind us of. That behind relentless schedules, impossible expectations and endless noise, they still have moments like this. A dinner table. Soft laughter. A phone camera held by a friend who loves them. Memories captured not for the world, but for the heart. And maybe that's the most romantic thing of all. Not loud love. Not public confessions. But quiet togetherness. Chosen closeness. Moments so small yet so full they leave you aching in the best possible way. One table. One shared meal. Four names spoken with care. And bonds that, without ever needing to say it out loud, continue to choose each other. Thank you for sitting with us in this tender moment here on Velvet Moments. If it touched your heart the way it touched ours, then maybe that quiet warmth has already done exactly what it was meant to do. White heart.